Hello, I'm Cammy G and welcome back to our Canny Valley AFK Endurance videos. So quick disclaimer, my audio didn't record on my microphone, so I'm recording this after the fact as I watch the video. But yeah, we're on the north amplifier here and we are now doing the north spawn for this amplifier. So we built the east direction here, so as I say I'm just going through, try to say this as I'm watching the video. Obviously I'll try to explain what I explained when I recorded it, but yeah, for the spawn you will get some at the top of this hill. Now it is a bit further back from where I show, it's like a bit more to the back and to the right of there, so when we build the block offs we can move those a bit further back, but I have recorded that and we'll add that. And then there's another spawn down here at the bottom, which is the main spawn. Like most enemies will spawn down here and in this cave, so there's a few different directions they can get to the amplifier. Two hills here, and then to the side there's that main route where the river flows up, and then there's a side route they can take up there which we will block off as well. But the main route, as I'm showing there, is where we'll bring the enemies, and we will drop the ones from the top into that route as well. So I'm going to go back up to that top route here and we will start to build some block offs. So as I said, the spawn is around here, but it is actually a bit further back, so we'll add more block offs, but we'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, this route down here, we're just going to leave the ceiling open in that bottom tunnel even, and the enemies can drop in. The other directions they can come is over here, so we're just going to block that off here as we do, and we'll put some traps on it if we need to, but this should act as enough blockade to stop them from coming through this bit. And we'll add a floor block just to, you know, give it more reinforcement to stop the enemies from coming through. And then, as I say, we can end up putting some like wall spikes on this and some traps around, but I never saw any enemies try to break through there. You might be tempted to put a ramp here, but you can't because the enemies will just walk on top of it, so that's all the blocking we can do. Same with the ceiling, they'll just walk over the ceiling if you place a ceiling. But yeah, they'll just walk through the tunnels that we built for the other direction for this amplifier. So here, you can see that little ledge down there I showed, that's where we'll drop them to, a roundabouts there in a way. So the enemies will drop down to this sort of cliff here if we make an opening for them from the top. So if we just lead the enemies from the cave up to the top here and sort of lead them to this right exit, and just block off the left to make sure that they obviously don't break out to somewhere where we don't want them to, and then we'll just build this chute all the way to the top. So you can obviously like drop down and build it if you want. I'm just building stairs up, and then we'll get rid of the stairs afterwards. Whichever way you find easiest to build it obviously is the best way to go for. And then we'll just block to the side of this to make sure enemies don't try and flank around the tunnel, break the tunnel, anything like that. Just having a hard time placing these blockades. And then to this side is especially important because this is what leads to that sort of ledge we blocked off at the bottom, because enemies will want to go that way to sort of circumvent the trap tunnels. So it's definitely good to get that left side as you're looking towards the amplifier, get that blocked off. But I will show later on extra blockade. But here on the other side we're just adding extra blockade behind it as an example of what you could do if you wanted, but I didn't add that and I had no issues with it on that side, so you should be fine. Then here is where enemies can drop down to if they want. I don't think many enemies do, but yeah, this left side we need to make sure is blocked off. So what we'll do is we will actually bring the enemies up here from the cave and we'll just block the exit to make sure they can't come out. But yeah, we'll bring the enemies up this side in the cave and then sort of zigzag them into the tunnel to fall down, so that enemies from above can drop into this tunnel as well, if they please. But I don't think I really saw many doing that. They were mostly just dropping from the top, you know, down the full water slide type thing we've got going on there. So they're going to drop down there, and you know, you could add extra traps here as they fall down if you want, or you can try block it off with, you know, cones and floors to stop them from going down. It's up to you. You don't really need to block them from going down because they're going to take loads of damage if they fall into that trap tunnel. So if you just build it like I have, you shouldn't have any issues, because obviously when I tested it I didn't get any issues. So yeah, you should be fine with what I show in the final build on this video. As I say, you can place traps there if you want, but it's really not necessary, as most enemies will drop straight down into that tunnel as opposed to going down the steps as they are. But yeah, we just need to block off this side route to stop enemies from being able to flank through. So just get some stairs in there. Make sure you get that grid method we get going in all of our builds. So building walls in each side and then a cone pointing towards the sort of just where the spawn is. Now you can add obviously more behind it if you need, like we're adding an extra one here. And you can make it too wide as well, which I think we do in this video, yeah, to give it extra support. And then in the final build, when I tested it, I didn't see any enemies trying to break through this blockade. It is thick enough. So yeah, they can't cause any issues there. So I think I just showed, like, you know, you could add more if you need to, but you definitely don't need to. And even if they did come round, there's not too many worrying ways they can go. It's just mainly this top hill where they'd be able to sort of walk onto the trap tunnels and circumvent it. So we can just add a little bit of blockade for this path if we want to stop enemies from being able to, you know, sort of want to come onto this cliff edge, which just stops them from wanting to break through the block-offs we built before, more than before. And now you can add more here. This probably isn't necessary. I haven't tested it without it yet, but you know, if you wanted to try it without, you can definitely feel free to, but it's not a lot of metal anyway. So if you've got our mat grinder, which if you haven't, definitely check out the Save the World Guides videos playlist, but yeah, if you've got enough metal, which you should have, I think if you're doing endurance, then, you know, it should be good. And then we're just adding a bit more block-offs here to make sure enemies don't want to break around the side of our sort of block-offs that we have in front of the tunnel chute. So it's a lot of block-offs in this video, which I appreciate is annoying and uses a lot of material, but it's an annoying spawn, and, you know, if you don't build this stuff, this spawn will mess you up, because from this high point they can go to so many different places, so it is really important. And then just some extra cone options here if you wanted. To the sides, I think I might get rid of them in the end, I can't remember actually, but oh, I'm just, yeah, you can sort of add that, but I think the one to the left we do add back in the end, but as I say, I'll add that in at some point as an adjustment in this video. And just saying you can add more in front of this, but I don't think I did. Oh, did I? Oh, maybe I did actually. Or maybe I'm just showing the example. No, it looks like I'm adding it back as well, which makes this 3 wide, which, you know, I guess that's why they never broke through, because, Jesus, that is quite overbuilding, I suppose. You could probably get away with 2, so you could probably get rid of the back one here or something. But, you know, if you want to, like I say, just build exactly what I've built, then just copy it, you know, carbon copy, and you'll be good to get those endurance rewards. So, yeah, not really sure what I was showing there, but we'll need sort of a lobber shield. Oh, I think I was just showing that, yeah, lobbers have a nice, juicy, accurate way to shoot at the amplifier from here, so we need to add a lobber shield. So we'll do that, and we'll probably go quite wide and maybe 3 tiles up. Obviously I'll show it. And the enemies that drop into this sort of, you know, staircase thing here, they could target the amplifier from down there, so that's why we've spread out the lobber shield a bit more to the side, and that just completely blocks off any sort of option for the flingers and lobbers to be able to target the amplifier. So as I said, this has gone 3 high up from where we started, and that should be plenty enough. I didn't see any enemies being able to fling or lob. And then what you could do if you want, instead of having them all as ramps, you could flatten it out at one point and then put tar pit traps on it over the spawn. I ended up not putting traps over the spawn up there, and I didn't have any issues apart from the block off stuff, but we add more for that anyway. But you know, if you want to add that in, that's definitely up to you. But yeah, now down with this spawn, we're going to block this like direct route and make them go up the side. It just gives us more room to deal damage. It's not necessary that we need more space, it just means we have to place less traps, because a lot of enemies will want to go up that left route. So as long as we block one of them, and this one works better because this is where the top enemies can drop into, so if we do it this way, we use less traps and obviously allow them to drop down, which means they won't cause any issues. If they, you know, drop down into the middle of block-offs, they'd break the block-offs, and then enemies would just go through the block-offs. So yeah, we just need to make sure they've got a way in. But yeah, what we can do in this area is sort of have our low walls with dynamos on, with wall darts to the back, so that's what we're building here. And that'll just, yeah, enemies are not going to want to break through that corner bit, that's fine. We'll just sort of zigzag them up here, getting walls in pretty much every place to deal a lot of damage. Yeah, enemies don't really make it out of this top tunnel, really, from this bottom spawn. There is so much damage going on that they just can't. and then that little wall there we can put some wall darts on to do even more damage. And then yeah, just make sure you leave this ceiling here open, otherwise, I mean you can place a ceiling if you want, but they'll probably drop on it and break it, so you're probably just best off not placing one, basically. It wouldn't cause any serious damage, I don't think, but it's just wasted material, effectively. But yeah, now you can see how high that chute goes up. We need to make this connect all the way down to the bottom. As I say, enemies will voluntarily drop down in here, which is just funny to see, because it's such a long distance to go down. We have to be careful with the floors, but on this side it's nice and smooth, and we just need to make sure that the floors we are placing do connect to that sort of river area. But yeah, we need to block this flank first, because this is a prime area for enemies to come through. I think I did actually trap this out when I did my Canny Valley videos back in the day, but yeah, we can block this because there's plenty of space. Like, nothing's going to want to path through there. That is way too many block offs. They'll just see the other route as faster. And obviously if you do see any issues, you can block off the sort of ramp up as well and add more traps and such. I don't think any enemies can get there from here, but we will be building trap tunnels around there for the amplifier there, which is northwest, yeah. So we'll get there eventually, so don't worry about that path there. We will be covering that when we get to that video. That's basically just what I'm explaining there. So yeah, now that we've got that blocked off, we can start building sort of the stuff around this spawn. So as I say, it'll be at the bottom of this river, not cliff, sort of like ramp, and then we can get them to come into the tunnel here. So as you can see in the video, I can walk into this easily. I don't need to jump or anything, so that means the husks can also get in. I appreciate the count on the left, but they will path to the right hand side to be able to get in. If you are paranoid about it, you can move it further back, but you know, it should be alright either way. I can't remember exactly where I built up to when I did it, but whatever I end up building in this video is perfectly fine, so just make sure you copy that, I guess. All I'm saying there is you can force them to walk on the left if you want by doing that, but we're going to block the right off anyway to make sure they don't come up that sort of awkward bit with the water, because coming into there they won't be able to get up onto a ramp anywhere, so we just need to block that off, and just a few walls and cones here will do the trick, plenty enough. We're not really asking them to go around too far, are we? So it's fine. And then we can do our combo of dynamos and wall darts here, and yeah, just get the path going, and we'll just sort of zigzag them towards our main tunnel where they will join up with the enemies that drop at the bottom. But yeah, that wall at the end is a nice wall launcher placement. But yeah, in the end I end up getting rid of that floor, and then from here, as I say, we can just bring them on the floor. They won't try to break it or anything. They'll stay in the path. It'll be nice, and yeah, good. This block off is to just go behind that wall to make sure like smashers and stuff don't want to break through it. So we're just going to add that a few times, just to make sure they do path around it instead of trying to charge it or anything. It is quite far away from the objective though, so I would be surprised if they did try to. And then here I'm just saying you can, if you want, you know, build the walls far out like this, which we'll put darts on, and then low walls as before to put dynamos on to do the biggest damage possible. But in that middle one, we're probably going to want to put a wall launcher to send enemies back through the tunnel, recycling those traps for them. So that's what we end up doing there. But you can still do the design on the side ones if you want, or you can close it off. It's honestly up to you which way you do it. It's not going to make too much difference, because most stuff will die in the early stages of the trap tunnels and at spawn, because Canny is quite easy as well. It can get difficult towards the top ends, and you know, as with any endurance, the main thing is covering flanks and such, because that is what will kill you in endurance. Obviously if you built nothing, that would kill you as well, but yeah, we're just making sure we put walls on every part of these trap tunnels. You don't need a wall there, but if you wanted to, you could put a wall and have a low wall again with dynamos to do extra damage. It is pretty overkill, and it's mostly just targeting mini bosses and smashers, to be honest. No regular enemies are going to make it this far in, so it's up to you. And I do believe that cone should be able to be shot through by wall darts, but an alternative is building an edited floor. You can also do, you know, the cone or a ramp, because the ramp you can clearly see would go through. But yeah, I believe the cone should be able to be shot through by darts, so you can leave that in. Then when they come to this ramp, we can do our usual sort of design on this. You can put a trap on the ramp as well if you want. It's not completely necessary. At the top of the ramp, we'll start bringing them onto floors again. And then this area, we will add more block offs here later on. but just in case you're really paranoid, we just need to make sure that enemies cannot get through this area. So that involves, you know, putting some more blockade behind there, and some more blockade at the top, which is what we put at the end of the video. But yeah, you can't really add much more here, because editing that, they'll be able to get into the blockades, and if you put a ramp, they'll just land on top of the ramp. So there's not really much you can do there, but you can build behind it by placing a floor, which the enemies would walk onto should they break through the wall, and then you can just add more blockade with a ramp and such, which, you know, you can definitely add that in. It will then just give you that, you know, peace of mind that they're not going to try break through there. But yeah, towards the end of this trap tunnel, we'll just bring the enemies towards the ramp that we built for the other direction. And I think I'm just showing here, like, you can build a floor here as well if you want. Like, I did go over it in that video, but, you know, if you wanted to add a floor here, you can do. Just making sure that people are aware that you can add that in if you want. But yeah, you can see enemies can't get onto that floor piece from the east direction, so I end up getting rid of it because there's just a chance that enemies will come up to it and break it, so might as well just leave it without any aggravation, and then we're not, you know, risking anything. You can add more block offs here as well on the water bit, just to stop enemies from wanting to fall onto that and come into the you know, the objective. It's not overly necessary, and I don't think I end up adding it or anything. The main thing we're adding here is the low walls with the big walls behind it to put the wall darts on. So that's the main thing here, and then we'll add, you know, all the ceilings at the end as we usually do, because we put them higher up to do, you know, ceiling drop traps and ceiling electric field, that sort of thing. So this bit's 3 high up for the ramp, 2 high up for the sort of top trap tunnels though. And I just say, just avoid building floors here, because if you did, the enemy would be able to drop onto it, and that'll make them want to path there more, so we don't put any ceilings there. As much as we could do extra damage by doing so, it's better to be safe than sorry. So we won't put anything there. And then from here, we probably want to drop the ceiling down to the lower trap tunnels. I'm just pointing out that this is sort of where we drop the smashers off from the bait and switch. But yeah, for the ceiling here, again, avoid placing it and connecting it to that tunnel, because that is where the enemies would want to drop down to from the top spawn. So we want to just not give them a way to walk over the trap tunnels, basically. I appreciate it gives you less ceilings to place down, but as I say, we're not really going to be worried about enemies coming to this point and making it through the trap tunnels. As I say, it's just going to be smashers and mini bosses, but we can do the usual design here with tire drop traps down the middle and ceiling electric fields to the side. And then here you can go back across the spawn. You can go further than I do if you want. I do a 3x3, I think, so you can go back 4 or 5, you know, however much you want to do it if you have lower durability, you know, trap tire drop traps, stuff like that. But it's really not that necessary. This will deal with most stuff. And as I say here, you can place a ceiling here and have ceiling electric field on it if you want. Now this bit here, the enemies could drop down to from that top spawn, which I still don't think they do. Like, I don't know why they just don't really path to there. But just what I'm showing here is that you might want to, I think, drop the ceiling down and then put it back up again, just to stop them. So if they did drop on that ceiling, they wouldn't be able to get, you know, all the way to the objective. So if you look at the comparison now, if they do drop on, they'll get to sort of this point, which they could get over those blockades anyway. So you can either get rid of the ceiling there to stop them from being able to do that, or you can, you know, add a blockade on the sand bit, the sort of cliff. It depends how you want to do it. All you have to do is just make sure you're like rising it and bringing it back down at some point to make it so that enemies can't walk over all the trap tunnels. If you're enjoying the video so far, thank you so much for watching, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our members. Thank you so much to the current members we have, and just wanted to go over the tiers to anyone else that might be interested. So we have 5 tiers from Stonewood, Plankton, Canny, Twine, all the way up to Epic Founder, and as you can see on screen, we have these amazing benefits at each tier, getting more and more as you go up. So yeah, if anyone's interested, just look for the join button next to the subscribe button, and thank you so much for your time. Cheers, enjoy the rest of the video. So we're going to build a lobber shield from here, and this will cover that area. You know, if enemies did drop to that area, but we need to make sure we don't build it any higher, because they will drop on top of that lobber shield if we do. So if you keep it to too high, then the enemies can't drop on top of it, and it will be plenty high enough to stop enemies from being able to fling towards the objective. So that will be plenty enough. So, you know, they can walk over the trap tunnel if they want. I don't think I really saw any enemies doing that. You know, you can get rid of the right hand side of the traps if you're worried about it. That way they can't. But as I say, I didn't see any enemies do it, and even if they did, there's still a lot of trap tunnel for them to go through, and they'll definitely die. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about it at all. And then here we can just put some ceilings to the side for electric fields if we want to do a bit of extra damage. It doesn't really matter too much if it's higher up or lower down. I think I just moved it higher up because it just matched nicer. That's literally it. And then in the corner, you know, you can add another one for ceiling electric field, a bit more damage. But, you know, this is getting to sort of like overkill territory. Again here, you know, you can have another one for a bit of extra damage. But, again, it's pretty overkill. You shouldn't really need it. It's up to you, as I say, how many of those you want to place. And, you know, how much. If you want to save some electric field traps and some metal, just don't build as many ones to the side. The tire drop traps should be plenty enough. And then we've just got the bait and switch, which we showed last video. So if you don't, you know, if you don't know what that is, you don't know how to build it, that type of thing, just watch that video. But yeah, that'll do it. So I'll show you the traps and the perks for those, and then, you know, get this stuff leveled up, and I can show you where to place them. The enemies started banging through the top and broke this bit, and it's not the end of the world, because if they get down here, they'll just walk around and go up. And most of our traps will deal with them. But I think we just want some more block-offs here. Now, the spawns are actually quite far back, further back than I thought. I hadn't really visited too many canny storm shield defenses before designing this. So it's more like back here. So you can easily, you know, add another block-off here, for example. Like, oops, didn't mean to edit that bit. Like that. And, you know, we're not bothered about enemies going down there, so this should be plenty enough. You can add one on this side as well if you're paranoid, you know, like this. And what I'd do is just get rid of the wall spikes off those back ones, like that. Replace it with a regular wall, and put your wall spikes at the front. And on these, I'd do broadsides either side. And I don't think they were breaking through in here, so that should be enough. But obviously, if you see any resistance after adding this, just add more block-offs or traps around it. You know, I think I said when I made it, you can put traps above here, some ceiling drop traps, for example. This blockade over here worked fine, though. This worked perfectly. Although some of it may get destroyed by the spawn, they never tried to break through here. Alright, so now that you've got that stuff leveled up, we can go ahead and place the traps down. So I appreciate it's quite a lot again, but, you know, there's less amplifiers in Canny, so it works out nicely. But yeah, for these trap tunnels, it's going to be the same sort of, you know, vibe that we go to in most of our trap tunnels. So whenever there's a low wall, it's going to be a dynamo, and then behind that will be darts. But towards the, you know, trap tunnels here, we're going to slow them with wooden floor spikes to do damage at the same time as well. Wall darts at the back, as I say, to shoot over the dynamos. This wall here is up to you. You can do dynamo, wall darts, doesn't really matter too much. Just don't use broadsides because it won't bounce properly. And then here again, yeah, wall darts at the back over the top of those dynamos. At the top of these stairs, we're going to do broadsides on the sides, but we'll do wall darts at the back to shoot out at their enemies that make it to the top. But yeah, the broadsides will shoot and trickle down, which will do nice damage to anything that comes up. You can add traps on this wall if you want, but I'm going to leave it without. It's not overly necessary. Here we can do a wall launcher, but make sure you're using the impact one for those smashers. And then to the side, it's up, you know, you can try stun them, or you can do damage with sort of a dynamo, wall darts. Just don't use broadside, because there's no wall to shoot against. So yeah, I think I'm just explaining that, you know, you can stun for the wall launcher if you want, but I'm going to use the dynamo for some huge energy damage. And then just wooden floor spikes throughout this again, keep the enemies slowed so we can do huge damage, and they'll take damage from the wooden floor spikes as well. So literally just doing, you know, that throughout the entire tunnel. You can definitely use floor freeze if you want, or do some damage with retractable towards the end of it. And then on the rest of the low walls, I'm just placing our dynamos down because we know that's where we want to place them. Definitely get these on all of those low walls. It's the best way and the only way to do damage in that situation, because spikes only deal damage if they're hitting them. And then when you opposite one, like that wall I was just pointing to, wall dynamo or wall darts, both are good options. The benefit of using a dynamo though is that it does energy damage, so those you know, elemental smashers and enemies are going to take more damage. Just comparing the damage of the wall darts and the dynamo, you know, you can make a decision yourself. If you don't want to use what I'm using, that's completely fine. But yeah, behind these we'll do wall darts to do damage over the top of them, like this. Then at the end of this we want another wall launcher, so I'd probably go for an impact one here as well, because it's quite far into it and we want to kind of guarantee that we're going to hit them, you know, like smashers for example. We can add that little extra thin wall as well to make sure enemies do get knocked back by it, you know, they have the time to get hit by it. Yeah. And you can add another one here as well towards the end of that little tunnel, to make sure that last one affects enemies as well. On this back wall we're probably going to go for wall darts to affect all the enemies, and behind that dynamo as well. Done all those traps, so on this bit we're going to do a wall launcher to keep pushing the enemies back through the tunnels, keep getting them back towards spawn. These ones will be more durability ones, because the enemies are going to be coming through a lot more, you know, as they sort of have very low health from spawn, but you can still extend the path if you want. I think I actually placed that in the wrong place, but just explaining why I don't use it sometimes in those situations, because the wall launcher after it can end up pushing into that small wall, which is annoying. But yeah, the same sort of thing for those traps there. This one is facing a wall, so we'll put a broadside, and then on this wall it'll shoot out a nice long distance, so we'll do wall darts on that one, get that affecting all those. At the top here we can do broadsides on the sides to bounce back and forward, can do huge damage there. Yeah, beautiful stuff. We're going to need a sound trap here somewhere, so that's why I place a wall here. You could try do it on the block off to the side, but not all enemies will be walking past that. And then we probably want one up here as well, so I'm placing one there just so we don't forget, because it's useful to get rid of those sploders canisters to make it so they don't blow up our trap tunnels. And then yeah, just placing tire drop traps over the spawn here. Make sure you're facing the amplifier so the tire drop traps trickle down behind you towards their spawn to sort of slow their progress. Then at the top of the ramp here, it's up to you what you want to use. Tire drop trap might trickle down, so that's why I used it, although you shouldn't really use it at one height, but you know, it doesn't matter too much in this situation. An electric field would work pretty good as well, because it'll zap out towards that spawn a little bit as well. And then yeah, tire drop traps through that in the entire tunnel, and then towards the end here we can do some zappers. I don't actually have full perks on these, so I think I wanted to go out, upgrade the perks and come back and put them in, but yeah, definitely do 2 zappers there, and then tire drop traps on these ones again on the higher ceilings. But yeah, just make sure you're putting zappers on those ones to do huge damage to any like smashers making it to that point. On these ceilings to the sides we will use ceiling electric field. It's the only trap you can actually use there to get damage into the main tunnel, because no other traps, you know, zap to the side like that one does, for ceiling anyway. And then you can place more ceilings there if you need to, but you really shouldn't need any more damage at this point, you know, we've done so much. You can place traps in that tunnel chute going down if you want, but you really don't need it. At the top of the trap, at the top of the hill here, we're going to use another tire drop trap, and then throughout the centre, I'm just pretty much putting sealing electric field in all of this, just to keep zapping enemies as they go through. It'll zap multiple enemies, all that good stuff, and then towards the end, probably do zappers again to deal with any big enemies that have made it all the way through. At the top of the ramp here, we're going to use wall darts to shoot in. And you know, it'll do nice damage to them, but I'm just saying you can get rid of the wall if you want, because the wall launcher might knock them into that wall. Now there is a cliff behind it, so honestly if you want to keep the wall with wall darts on, that's absolutely fine. But yeah, that first launcher wants to be a durability launcher, and then on here we can do some wall darts to the side to shoot them, and then on that you can do another launcher, send them back out into spawn if you want. Durability one again, so 4 durability on that one with a reload and an impact. And then for the floor traps, question mark, gonna do wooden floor spikes for a bit throughout this, and then honestly towards the end of it you can do retractable or freeze, either way. You could probably do freeze towards the middle of the trap tunnel and then retractable towards the end if you want. That would be very effective, you know, it's up to you. And then we're just going to place some more launchers, so 1 durability, and then the rest of these are going to be high impact for those bigger enemies that make it through the first part of the trap tunnel. This wall darts will shoot nicely at the enemies, and then either, you know, wall darts or dynamo there, that's up to you. This wall is opposite the launcher though, so we're just going to do broadsides for those ones. But then here we're going to need to do wall darts again, because that will shoot over those low walls, which we will put dynamos on. You know the stuff. You should know this stuff by now if you've been watching all the trap tunnels. But yeah, these walls are opposite a launcher, so we can do broadsides on those as well. And then you can do more traps here over the spawn if you want. It's really not that necessary. Most stuff is gonna die by the time it makes it into the you know, the entrance to this trap tunnel. It should be absolutely fine. And then just a wall spike on that to stop any enemies from wanting to break through. Should they try, it will, you know, discourage them. So that's a good way to do that. And then yeah, in the chute, you know, as I say, you can put traps in there if you want. It's really not going to do much, though I wouldn't recommend it. But we can do the same sort of thing here, so darts at the back and then broadsides at the sides. We'll ping back and forward, but I'm just saying here you can put, you know, traps over the spawn. I didn't end up doing it on mine, and I had no problems. But, you know, if you've got the traps and the resources and stuff, just go for it. You're like, well, why not? It's a good way to deal damage to those husks. So, you know, I'll leave that up to you guys if you want to do that. But yeah, on these block-offs we want to get some wall spikes to make sure that enemies don't break through. Now I think we will end up getting rid of some of these when we do the adjustments, but I'll show that. But I think we already showed that. And then yeah, just showing like where you can put the ceilings if you wanted to, you know, to put some ceiling drop traps, for example, or electric fields. Either or would be good there. And as I say in the recording that didn't record, you can stretch this back if you want. Just make sure it's going back far enough to stop lobbers and flingers from being able to target the objective. So I'd probably go like 3 instead of 2, like the ramps are, because the ramps do cover more range because they go higher up. But like I said, I didn't include it in the end for me. So, you know, if you want to stick to exactly what I've built, don't build them. But, you know, if you want to put them in, that's up to you. Definitely. Do what you like there. You do what you like. And then at the top here, anything would work on the floor, to be honest. Like, it really doesn't matter. And then for the ceilings, it also doesn't really matter. Just probably best off using an electric field at the back at least, because it will ping out to the front as well. And then I think that's most of the traps placed down. Just double checking everything is in, but then just saying, you know, we can add a block off here if we want, but I did show why I don't like to do it. But to be honest, you know, it's up to you. You can add it if you want. It's a nice bonus, but it's definitely not necessary or anything. Oh, we missed a ceiling electric field here, so get that placed in. And then I thought I missed 2 ceilings here, but yeah, I saved it for the zappers that I need to upgrade the perks for. I think I missed a wall there as well. You can put a dynamo on that. I think I even missed it in the recording. And then there's some ceiling traps here with electric field to zap inwards. And then I think that should be pretty much everything. Just adding some spikes here in case enemies do try flank, and a wall launcher to push them down, you know, if they did try come there, but I don't think any did try break through there. We had quite a lot of block off there, so, you know, they shouldn't be trying to. But, yeah, that should be all the traps you need, so, yeah, definitely good build here. It's obviously taken a lot, I appreciate that, but appreciate you sticking with me, I appreciate you watching the video. Please do consider liking, you know, commenting, subscribing, all that good stuff, and just thank you for watching the video. So hopefully I'll see you in a future one, and yeah, goodbye.